Here we have the start of the 3/4 inch hole in the 3mm end plate. I'm using a centre finder to pick up the centre punch mark, and if you do any work like this, you'll notice if you're offline, the centre finder will be ragged on one side. So you just move the table handle backwards and forwards until there's no centre finder showing outside the body. Reasonably simple. I'll put the centre drill in and we'll drill the centre drill hole. Now I've changed over to the centre drill, and once again I'm using that coconut based MIG tip dip as the lubricant. It seems to be very, very good on these non-ferrous materials. Just ease the centre drill through. I don't like going speedily in copper, otherwise you have a great big stuff up. That's coming out quite nicely now. Yeah, we're through the chute easily. Swap this out now for the bigger drill. And put a bit more lube around where we're going to drill the hole. Okay, another boring bit. I'll bring you back just as we're going through. I've had to keep the lube up to it. It's a sticky piece of material. And I dare say that when I dubbed the drill, I finished up with one leg a little bit longer than the other. But it's making the hole. There we go. Just popping the disc off the back now. That's what I like to see. Hole in copper. Okay, bring you back for the next stage of the project. Well, back again, and here's a dodgy setup I thought you'd all like to have a laugh at. It's the 4-inch copper discs I've cut for inside the end of the test vessel, and just trying to make them round and to size. I didn't have a stub mandrel that size, so I've got a grinding arbor up there and an oversized Clarkson bush and a through bolt, only taking 5 thou per pass, and now that it's cutting a little bit I'm using a bit of CRC 556 fairy piss to lubricate it. And the insert is a milling insert, TPUN, so no chip breaker. That way I've got 0 rake, 08 radius, and just taking 5 thou per pass and very, very gently going across. I've managed to get it about halfway to where I want to go. So I'll start the Mazak and give you a demonstration. That puts the feed on. 5 thou in. And just very slowly feed it across. I know it's a dodgy setup, but for a one-off job I didn't want to spend the time to make up a decent arbor with some good washes. Because in all honesty, we'll probably never use it again. Cutting these copper discs was an absolute pain in the behind with the jigsaw, even though I was using coconut oil anti-spatter as a lubricant. It just didn't want to cut. However, cutting the copper tube with the 1mm cut-off wheel was a breeze. It didn't cut very accurately and cut a fairly wide curve, but job done very, very quick. You might pick that up in the lathe to square the ends up for the next operation. I think it'll fit through the fixed steady. I'm certainly hoping it will. It's right on the limit. So a bit of a boring way to spend Sunday, but I think that the end product will be very, very interesting to test. Hopefully we get up to about 600 to 800 psi before it fails, and maybe it won't fail and we'll leave it at that. I'll put a little bit of CRC Fairy P on there now, give it some room, and take another 5 there. You get there after a while. You can just see the copper peeling off. If you try and take more than this sort of feed rate, the disc just spin. And don't worry about the shaft being a little bit eccentric. The object here is just to make them round and put a weld prep on or a brazing prep. It doesn't matter if the centre tube is not concentric with the OD. We're getting a little bit of a shiny surface, so I'm gradually getting closer. I've got about another 1.5 or 2 mil to get off at this speed, so I'll be here for some time yet. Okay, won't bore the paints off you. I'll bring you back for the next operation. Back again on the pressure vessel, and I'm glad to say it's jigsaw and angle grinder 1, copper tube and sheet 0. We actually had a winner, a few moments of freckle tightening in there as the copper tube come apart, but I'm amazed at how quick those 1mm cut-off wheels get through copper. The jigsaw had a lot of trouble, but the cut-off wheel eats it. All for now. Hello to everybody and welcome back to In My Shed. This is a further part to the episode of making the test pressure vessel. And what I've got in screen at the moment is a centre I made for a 200mm piece of steel tube they had to put up in a boiler a few years ago. I radially cut in slots with a hacksaw. This fits neatly into the end of the tube. Tighten up the screws and it expands the plywood and locks it in, and live centre goes in here. A little bit Heath Robinson, but it worked and I got the job done. That's the important part. Very, very slow RPM and just feed at it very, very slightly. Otherwise you can have a bloody disaster. Back to this copper boiler that I'm working on at the moment. Or, sorry, test vessel, not boiler. We'll zoom in a little. I've got it up in the fixed steady and I couldn't believe my luck. It just fitted in there with about 1/4 millimetre on the end of the fingers. Left go. They're only lightly touching the shell and I'm keeping the lubrication up to it. As it's going to be put up to extreme pressure, I can't afford to score the outside too much. So what I'll do now, I'll get the lathe going, take another 5 thou cut so you can see how it happens. Steady, steady with the job. It cuts fairly well, but it is so easy to have a oh hell moment. And that's the last thing I want with the price of copper tube. And I think I'm very close to there, maybe one more cut. go in another 5 thou. Still a bit of a mark there. A little bit more fairy weight. And out we come. I still see a defect there. I was doing the same operation with a bit of 3/4 copper tube a while ago and the whole lot just buckled up and flew to bloody pieces. No, I've still got a bit of a saw cut to get out. So a bit more. I'll bring you back after it's finished and deburred. Well, there's the finished part of this effort. Finish came up quite good. It deburred very, very well. And I don't think I put too big a score on the outer shell, although I will polish it with a bit of Scotch-Brite to remove any stress razors. So next week we'll cut a tube to length to fit inside. Polish all the welded areas. I don't know if we'll have a chance to MIG braze it, but we'll have a try. Okay, bye for now.